Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the RNAV approach. We've done RNAV approaches before, and I've been playing around with kind of the way the avionics has shifted a little bit in Microsoft, trying to come up with what's kind of the best workflow, I guess I want to call it, and we're going to take a look at what that's going to be today. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, whenever you're doing an RNAV approach, remember an RNAV approach stands for random navigation. It simply means using an approach in modern terms, basically using a GPS to actually identify where your position is both vertically as well as horizontally. Now in the real world there are actually different types of RNAV approaches, depending on how they're actually done. Now if you want to go back even further, there was actually a situation where RNAV approaches could actually be done with a VOR, basically flying an offset VOR. So there's a couple different things we're going to want to make sure that we do correctly before we start getting all RNAV on us. The first one is we need to make sure the active destination is going to be our particular targeted airfields. So for example, if I want to come down here to direct 2, where we're going to be flying up to Keene today, which is a pretty short flight for us. Like I said, we just want to take a couple moments to go ahead and make sure everything's looking pretty good here. K-E-E-N, that makes it super easy as far as an airport in the game goes, which is convenient because the town is spelled K-E-E-N-E. K-E-E-N. There it was, Dylan Hopkins, enter. Now what we're going to do is we're going to confirm that the CDI is set to GPS mode. You can see it's GPS en route. This will switch over to approach once we get a little bit closer. Now that that's been set, I can actually pop over to my right device. You can see Keene is right around the corner. Now what we're going to do before we take off is we're actually going to pre-select and arm the approach. So I'm going to come down here to the proc button, hit the select approach button, and then we're going to go ahead and pick the approach we want. In this case, we're going to be using the RNAV, random navigation, for runway 2. Now, one thing you'll notice is if I wiggle the big knob here, it gives me two choices. I have ILS in 2, and I have RNAV for 2. We're going to pick RNAV 2 and press enter. Now, if we come down to where it says transition, now this is where some people get themselves in trouble. And by the way, if this isn't flashing, just push this button a couple times, and it lets it flash so you can change. Transition refers to where we're going to be intercepting the RNAV approach from. Think of this as the initial approach. If we give this a wiggle, you'll see we have a choice between Jumpo, Tespo, and Zorfo. Sounds like the Marx Brothers. So what this has to do with is this has to do with the actual diagram or approach plate that we're going to use. So let's go ahead and call that up and see if we can translate. Alrighty, let's take a peek. So this is the actual RNAV plate. What's a plat? We don't need any of this. This is from a previous video that shows you exactly what we're going to need to know for this particular approach. Now, if you probably noticed those transitions, what they were actually referring to is this guy Zorfo, this is Junpo, and this is Tesco. And simply what we do is we pick one of these as our initial point to hit. Our final approach fix is actually going to be at Yurgi, which is going to be over here and around the corner. So what makes this interesting is we need to pick the one that makes most sense. All RNAVs are basically going to be this kind of funky little letter T that you kind of see here. Again, for us, since we're coming from the south, is an upside down letter T. It's kind of like a double L kind of a thing. But what we need to know here is if I look at these two transitions, I notice they say the word no PT. And I also notice they say 3,400, which simply means that this is the altitude we need to be hitting them at. This little number 7, by the way, simply refers to what distance there's going to be between Tesco and Jumpo if we wanted to go ahead and determine the distances. So here's the thing. If I know there's going to be a procedure turn, which everybody just loves procedure turns, right at this particular spot, I'm going to fly into Tesco because I know that I'm not going to have to worry about that. And all I have to do is take this turn at 3,400 feet. So now there's other things we want to know. The other thing we want to know is we want to know what the weather is so we can set our barometer correctly. The other thing we're interested in is going to be whatever the missed approach is. Now the interesting thing is because of the G3000 or G1000 in Microsoft, if I attempt to fly this missed approach or try to enter it manually, I'm going to melt the computer. So you want to be very, very, very careful with this. I actually tested this out manually so you can put Jumpo in to go back around, and it completely failed the computer and I had to restart Flight Sim. I've never crashed Flight Sim that hard ever. But at least we know that it's here in case we need to come back to it. So let's go back over. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and pick Tesco. So I'm going to go over to the one that says Tesco. Press the enter key. It says, would you like to do it? Again, since it's not flashing, I can push this button to go down. We'll go ahead and do activate. And what this will do is immediately switch on our GPS so that it's lined up with Tesco. So you can see now, because Microsoft in its infinite glory, rather than taking us direct Tesco, it kind of takes us all the way around here and kind of around the corner. This, by the way, is Junpu. But at least we've eliminated ourselves from that pesky, like I said, procedure turn that would have to make us do a course reversal in the other direction. But again, I'm not going to worry about that too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off and get us right about here before we hit Tesco. All right, there we are. Oh, sweet. That was a pretty nice takeoff. One thing I'm going to do is start slowing down. I'm already doing $1.90 here, and I need to be doing a little bit slower. I also need to come down a tiny bit here. Let's go ahead and select 3,400 feet there. Like I said, it's only a little tiny bit below us. We'll go ahead and press the vertical speed button. Down. That should get us going down pretty gently. So one thing I'm noticing immediately is the program, the G1000, is smart enough to know that we're approaching something that's going to have an approach on it. You'll notice I got this letter G with this little kind of diamond that's chilling in here. This is our glide slope. Another thing I want to notice is I can see here that we're at 3,400 feet. So let's go ahead and grab up. I'll go look at the window here. I gotta love this part of the world. It's so beautiful, especially in the fall. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and grab our approach plate again so we can see what's going on. So we're right about now going to hit Tesco right here. We're gonna be at 3,400, which we are. We're gonna get to Junpo. If you take a look here, Junpo, we're supposed to be at 3,400 feet. Now what's gonna happen is we're basically gonna cross this point and we're gonna start heading towards Yorgi, which is going to have an altitude of 2,600 feet. And it's going to take us 6 minutes to get there. That means 26 plus 8 will mean 3,400 feet. So we need to lose 800 feet in 6 nautical miles. So if we lose 1,000 feet per 3 nautical miles, which is typical at normal speeds, this would mean that we'd have about 500-600 feet per minute. But we're going to need 1,000 feet per minute at 150 knots in order to safely get down here. So again, we can do that kind of at back of the envelope. The key thing is to not be below 2,600 feet is what this little sign says. Now what will happen is once we hit Junpo, we can go ahead and flip on the approach hold on the autopilot and then have it fly us down to Yorgi. We're going to have to do this part manually by ourselves. Keep in mind at any time we might have to kind of jump in and kind of get ready. So let's go ahead and take a look at other things I always look for whenever I'm doing an RNAV approach. One thing I'm going to be interested in is the airport elevation, which is very critical. I know my approach course is going to be 18 degrees. This is super helpful if you're a slightly older type of airplane. You have to put everything in manually. It's kind of nice. We know our missed approach procedure. We're basically going to go up to 1,600 and turn around. We also know if I come down here, LPV simply means that we're going to have both up and down as well as a lateral movement, which is our best combination of events. We have a minimum altitude of 843 feet. Now, if we were just doing LNAV, which is be lateral, and we had to manually control our vertical position, our minimums would be 1,340 feet, which is quite a bit higher than that. The other thing we can see here is this is the shape of the end of the runway, which is going to help kind of remind us when we actually get there. All right, let's pop back over to the sim real quick. All right, I'm at 3,400. Yeah, you can see right over my nose there. Let me go ahead and put that back on the screen so you folks can see it. I'm going to go ahead and drag it over here if it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and swing over to this side so you can kind of see things visually here. So you can see we're just starting to cross Tesco here, and you can see we're swinging over here. This is going to be Junpo. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly, but if I learned anything, it's that no matter how hard you try, you're never going to pronounce those things correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and hide that sucker real fast. Let's go ahead and get our altitude pre-selected for our final approach fix, which is going to be Yorgi. So we'll go ahead and go down to our altitude hold. We'll set this sucker to 2,600. Remember, it's at or above 2,600. And all we have to do now is play with the vertical speed once we know how many minutes it's going to take us to get to that particular position. So 1, 2, 3. We'll speed time up just a little bit here. I appreciate these lovely green mountains in southern New Hampshire. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Check my time. Looks good. We're about to cross Cahao. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and arm up the approach. So I'm going to press the approach hold button. Notice my glide slope warning has come on. Also notice we're not descending because we are above. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tell our aircraft to actually dive on its own. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and press the flight level change button. Go ahead and pull that throttle back. I'm going to go ahead and get the aircraft ready to approach here. Remember, we're looking for a little over 1,000. And it's going to take us 2 minutes, and we need to lose 800 feet. That's about 400 feet per minute. So if we want to be really lazy, we can just come in here in vertical speed mode and dial in 400 feet per minute. Ha ha ha. I love cheating. Now notice, even though we're in vertical speed mode, we still have a glide slope here. And also notice that even though we're in vertical speed mode, we do not see the glide slope moving upwards. Remember, our final approach fix doesn't happen until we hit Yorgi. At that point, we should be centered on this particular line. Now, one of the things I've learned from flying this approach a few times is the fact that just because it says that it should be at that position on the chart does not necessarily mean it is on that position in actual flight simulator. And that's going to require a little bit of finagling on our part to kind of play with. But hey, welcome to the fun, as they say. Now, I've done this in nice clear weather so you can see everything nice and visually. Let's go ahead and take a look back at the chart and kind of interpret a little bit what's going on here. So what do we know? So we're coming here, we're cruising along here. It's about 6 nautical miles. It takes about 2 minutes to hit the Yorgi here. We know we need to hit Yorgi at 2,600 feet, which is what it shows here. And taking a look at our little glide slope coming down here, we can see pretty clearly that we're still quite high. So when we hit Yorgi, if it does not start our descent, we're going to have to manually take control of things so that we can start flying the glide slope as Microsoft expects us versus what this actually says we're supposed to be approaching on. Then, of course, when we hit the 843, we make our decision whether we want to land. Honestly, I'm looking out the window right now. I can see the runway. I can say landing now if I wanted, but we'll go ahead and get things back under control. Now, let me give everybody a quick tip here. When you start your initial descent, one of the best things I've learned to do, something I actually picked up from the real world, is you want to make sure you put 1 notch of flaps in as soon as that descent starts. That extra notch is basically going to help keep you from getting too fast, because what they don't realize is your glide slope in the real world tends to be very, very steep. All right, we got 40 seconds until we hit our next particular position. That's going to be jerky. I'm going to zoom in just a teeny tiny bit here. There's jerky right there. Boop. So when we hit jerky, we need to be at 2,600 feet at or above. We're at 2,600 feet at or above. Our speed is looking really, really groovy. And I'm looking at the window, I can tell that the glide slope is definitely not going to catch in time for us to be able to actually start our descent. So we're going to have to go ahead and dial in our descent manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and dial this down to 843, which is going to be our absolute minimums. I'm going to go ahead and hit the vertical speed button. Now, here's what I know. I know to get us down to the ground is going to be about, call it 6.5 nautical miles. So I'm going to go ahead and increase my vertical speed. And we're going to bring us down at about, let's see, 120, 110. We're going to have to come down at about 800 feet per minute. Pull the throttle back. Go ahead and bring in that first notch of flaps. Now notice, even though we just crossed jerky, the glide slope did not come up to meet us. That means that Microsoft's approach plate was incorrect. So this is one of those things where you're going to have to keep an eye out for that, because it'll bite you if you're not paying attention to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically manually attempt to intercept the glide slope from above. Now in the real world, this is really hard to do because you pick up a ton of speed going downtown like this. Or downhill rather, not downtown. Downtown is a very different location. There's actually a really, really nice little pizza place here that does flatbread pizza right on the right next to the smokestack. But that's besides the point. All right, so now watch what's going to happen here. So you can see I'm just about below the glide slope. I just got a little warning here. I'm going to go ahead and level the plane back off. Go ahead and reactivate my approach. Now we're approaching the glide slope from underneath. Good time to get the plane ready for landing. I'm going to go ahead and pop down that notch. Go ahead and get everything ready. Don't stall your plane on the way down. Now notice Flight Sim is attempting to grab onto the glide slope, even though we know from where we hit it a minute ago, the glide slope is significantly flatter than it was supposed to be. This again is, like I say, you always got to consider the idiot check whenever you're doing one of these things, so it doesn't sneak up on you. Glide slope captured. Now we're actually going to fly this aircraft as if it was a normal one. Now the aircraft itself is on autopilot, so what it's going to do now is it's going to latch onto that glide slope and it's going to attempt to bring us down to the ground. Now what we're going to have to do as our pilots here is basically keep a close eye on our airspeed as well as monitor the rest of the approach. Now one thing I notice right now is that we're painfully high, but take a look at my airspeed. If you take a look over here, you can also see we're below the dreaded red line, which is not somewhere we want to be. We're having to cut the power so bad because this aircraft, like I said, the autopilot completely overshot it, which is again just one of those kind of things where you're like, come on guys, can't you just fix that? But now we know everything's working because GPS is lit up, which means that we have captured lateral guidance. We know that the glide slope is working as well because this is green. We also can see right now that we're just about centered on the glide slope here, which means everything worked despite things not working. We can also see this should not say ENR. This should actually say something different right now. But that's okay. Like I said, they do a really nice job with everything else. It's just important that we know how to kind of work around some of the different traps that you're going to run into in this. Give myself a little tiny bit of throttle here. Again, we don't need much on an approach. Not with a Baron. Now, a lot of people say, when is it time to put the landing gear down? I feel as soon as you have one diamond above your particular place, that's when you're going to want to drop the gear. We can go ahead and set this gear here. So now what I'm going to do is start preparing for my missed approach. I'm going to go ahead and press the heading button here, which is going to go ahead and put the heading at the top. If it does not do that, which as you can see, it clearly did not, I'm just going to manually grab the heading bug and I'm going to go stick it right where I'm currently pointing. That way, in the event that we do have to go around, we can quickly take the heading bug and dial it in where we need to go. Now, another thing people will actually do is you can actually come in here and you can actually press the missed approach button on your throttle, but unfortunately we do not have that functionality. All right, you can see very clearly that my heading bug is now where I'm going, so if I do need to go around, I need to pop up to 1,600 feet. I'm just going to make myself a quick little update. 1,600 looks good. This is going to be that direction. We'll go ahead and check the approach play one last time. Yep, 1,600 feet, then a left turn to 3,400, then direct to jumbo in case we need to come back around. So it looks good. 80 knots, 90 knots, right on glide slope. We're going to do one last Gumpels check to make sure. Oh, it does have a go around button. Sigh. Not going to work, but it is there. 90 knots looks pretty good. Looking out the window, 843. We've already passed 843. We've gone past our minimums. So now we look out the window and say, hey, can I see the ground? Yes. I'm going to go ahead and kill the automatic pilot, and we'll go ahead and put this thing on the ground the old-fashioned way. Now, one of the things is with these GPS approaches is they tend to be, at least in the real world, just as accurate as an ILS approach. You know, there's some places where they're starting to do these special augmented GPS approaches that give you the ability to have almost the exact same minimums in performance of an ILS without an ILS, which I just think is super duper impressive if you really think about it. 6, 7, 8. All right, nice and easy. Start backing the throttle. runway. Nose up. Gotta love these Barons. These things are just bonanzas, but like super heavy. And we're down. Delightful. All right, go ahead and hold that brakes. And we've made ourselves down to the ground. So hopefully this video is helpful as far as running on to some of the challenges you're always going to be hitting with RNAV. Like I said, the big thing with RNAV is you've got to pay attention to the altitudes. Just because Flight Sim says is one thing does not necessarily mean that you're going to be seeing that. Another thing is, like I said before, always be prepared for the missed approach by dialing everything in. And don't forget to drop that 1 notch of flaps when you start your initial descents. Other than that, enjoy.